Last year, we celebrated 200 years since the description of the first dinosaur, Megalosaurus, by one William Buckland. In that time, our perception of these incredible and mysterious animals has changed beyond recognition. Gone is the image of a giant sauropod lurking in a swamp to support its weight. Replaced by one of the most diverse and unique groups of animals ever described.
And they have captured the imagination of millions. The enigma of the dinosaurs has become part of human culture. Our children love them, adults pretend not to, and public discussion around the dinosaurs has only increased in the age of the internet, with some fan favourites such as Spinosaurids becoming such contentious and controversial topics that many online creators simply avoid talking about them as a whole. Part of the reason we're so fond of these animals in the modern day is uncovering the mystery that the dinosaurs left behind. They ruled the earth for millions of years, growing to enormous sizes, conquering every continent. The dinosaurs were weird, they were wonderful, but they're gone. And if anything was going to be more captivating to the imagination than a kingdom of giant reptiles, it would be how that kingdom came to pass.
66 million years ago, a 9-mile-long asteroid collided with what is now the Gulf of Mexico.
Molten rock and dust from the impact blocked out the sun. Within minutes, fragments of those materials would solidify in the atmosphere and rain down as shards of glass onto the surface below. With a sharp drop in global temperatures and no sunlight, plants withered and died. With them, the huge animals that depended on them for survival. The carnivores following closely in their wake.
In time, the overwhelming majority of the dinosaurs would succumb to this changed world. But not all of them. As far back as the 1970s, scientists have begun to seriously consider the idea that birds are in fact modern dinosaurs. By this point, that idea is now consensus, which means the pigeon that sits on your front lawn every day is a dinosaur. And a cool one at that. This creates two very important questions. Firstly, what's a dinosaur? And secondly, and possibly more importantly, what's a bird? To put it as simply as possible, a theropod dinosaur is a mostly warm-blooded reptile that walks in an upright position with its legs underneath its body, very much unlike a lizard. A bird, on the other hand, is, well, a warm-blooded animal that walks in an upright position with its legs underneath its body that, like theropods, lay hard-shelled eggs. There are some issues with that definition. When you talk about them like that, birds and non-avian dinosaurs seem remarkably similar, and they are, but there are some very key differences that set the two groups apart, and some very useful similarities that link them back together. So, what are they? And where do birds perch on the phylogenetic tree of life?
Before we start to talk about bones and anatomy and, fun things, we need to talk about the way in which scientists group animals and establish evolutionary history. It's called phylogenetics. A phylogeny is essentially just a fancy word for a graph that shows a relationship between two or more animals. There are a lot of ways to draw phylogeny. All of these drawings, for example, are valid. Yeah, even that one. We're going to focus on this one for now because it looks more like a tree. Understanding a phylogenetic tree is a lot like reading a family tree. The roots of the phylogenetic tree denote the ancestral group, whilst the tips of the branches indicate that you're moving forward in time, and they represent the descendants of a common ancestor. Here we can see the tree broken down into groups A, B, and C. We can see the common ancestors for each group as well. Let's look at an example of an actual phylogenetic tree. So in this case we have some big cats. In this case, you can see that the clouded leopard is the most distantly related animal on this tree, as it split off from the earliest common ancestor before the other members. Inversely, the tiger and the jaguar are the more closely related members of the group, as they share a more recent common ancestor when compared to the rest. Throughout this video, I'm going to use the term clade a lot, so it's important to understand what I mean by that. A clade is a group of organisms composed of all the descendants from one common ancestor. For a second, let's put that into the metaphor of the family tree. If we said that your parents were the most recent common ancestor in your family tree, you and your siblings would all form a clade. Your cousins, for example, would not be in that clade because your cousins aren't descended from your parents. Now, if you said that the common ancestor in the clade was your grandparents, then all of a sudden, your parents, you, your siblings, and your cousins are all the descendants of those ancestors, and thus you would form a clade. Birds are nested in the clade Maniraptora, which is the same clade that also includes dromaeosaurids like Velociraptor and Deinonychus, which you might already know.
One of the most interesting rules in phylogenetics is that you can't evolve out of a clade, no matter how hard you try.
If you are the descendant of a species of dinosaur, it doesn't matter if evolution has twisted your body into some shrieking orb of cobalt malice, whose underbelly pulses with the fury of a dying star, and whose mind conceals greed that would shame even the most indulgent of dragons. You'd still be a dinosaur. You'd just be a blue tit. This is why we refer to birds as being theropod dinosaurs, as they likely evolved from the same common ancestor as did the rest of Theropoda. Because an animal cannot evolve out of a clade, if a bird evolves from the early dinosaurs, well, they're still dinosaurs. That was a lot of information. Let's have a break. It's evidence time. If you're looking to prove an evolutionary relationship, or at least suggest one, you would expect that the species in question would share some key anatomical traits derived from their common ancestors. And in this case, they do.
Most birds possess a bone called a furcula, or a wishbone. As it would happen though, the wishbone is also present in a variety of other theropod groups, such as dromaeosaurs, oviraptorids, tyrannosaurids, troodontids, spinosaurids, coelophysids, and allosaurids.
And, crucially, transitionary fossils such as Archaeopteryx. What this implies is that birds and other wishbone-possessing theropods may have shared a common ancestor, and one that also possessed a furcula. It also suggests that Triceratops was breaking wishbones 66 million years before it was cool.
We previously established that birds are quite adept at walking the dinosaur, and this is largely due to the structure of their hips. Dinosaur hips are unique in the sense that they have a hole in their hip socket, called a perforated acetabulum, a feature that no other groups of animals on the planet possess, except birds. So are birds casually rocking dinosaur hips? Well, yes, kind of. It is possible that birds evolved their perforated acetabulum later on in their development, in a process known as convergent evolution. However, scientists don't believe this to be the case. However, just to be sure, let's collect a little bit more evidence.
If we want to suggest that birds evolved from non-avian dinosaurs, we would expect to find evidence in the fossil record of species that possess traits associated with both non-avian dinosaurs and birds at the same time. When we look at examples such as Archaeopteryx, we can see these traits very much present. Now, whilst Archaeopteryx is unlikely to be the direct ancestor of modern birds, if we assume that modern birds are the descendants of animals that looked something like it, as we go forward in time, we might expect that their non-avian traits become reduced. This is Saperonis, a more primitive ancestor to modern birds, yet younger than Archaeopteryx. We can see that its tail is considerably smaller and ends in a fused bony structure called a pygostyle. This is a trait found exclusively in birds, yet this bird still retains some characteristics that we see in other non-avian dinosaurs, such as visible claws on the wings, something birds no longer have. Except that one. These traits become gradually reduced as we uncover more and more recent bird species, until we reach Asterionus, the oldest known member of the family that includes modern birds. This particular species existed just in time to witness the end Cretaceous extinction, and, since it didn't live in a pear tree, it survived as well. What a little trooper. But of course, modern birds still possess some of the traits that were common in other theropods, such as the wishbone that we previously described, and feathers. Hopefully you're starting to see a bit of a connection here. Modern birds share traits common amongst theropod dinosaurs, and their fossil record depicts the progression of unique features, such as a pygostyle, and the reduction of more traditional dinosaur traits as birds adapted to their ecological niches.
The empire of the dinosaurs was a vast one, and one that never truly ended. Its legacy succeeded by some of its smallest members. Today, dinosaurs are vibrant, they're diverse, and they're beautiful. And they're birds. Here's to 2026, another year of dinosaurs ruling the earth. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. I like that take. We're doing that. We'll do it live.